Good. So for you to know, my presentation has been generated by artificial intelligence and mainly by Gen AI. So 85% of my content here, it's from generative AI. And to be honest, I was spending maximum, let's say 1 hour and a half to present to you the content. I hope it will be quite interesting for you. So generative AI, what we cannot do. Just before I proceed with the topic, so my name is Firas. I'm Deputy Head of Data Science Services and the Program Manager of Allianz GPT. So I'm currently leading a team of around 250 data scientists, data engineer from different, let's say, countries, and together we are innovating. We're trying to, let's say, to really implementing some interesting use case for Allianz operating entities and also our, let's say, end customers. So let's first speak about AI, and then we go deeper into the generative AI. So artificial intelligence is aiming to mimic our cognitive capabilities as human being. So they can, for example, see. So we speak here about computer vision. They can talk and listen. Then we speak about natural language processing. They can take complex decisions when we speak based on historical, let's say, trainings and learnings. And here we speak about machine learning. And now they can be also the next Beethoven or the next Mozart, who can generate nice pieces, artistic pieces of music or of painting. But also they can generate any kind of content that could be interesting to use, such as text, image, as I said, poem, game, DNA, gaming, so many more. So generative AI is an umbrella within the artificial intelligence which aiming to generate a new content. But within this umbrella, under the umbrella of artificial intelligence, we are speaking about large AI model when we have those sexiest keywords such as ChatGPT, DALL-E, Llama, etc. Let's deep dive into large AI models. In large AI model are we can find large language model. So when we speak about large, we are speaking about first huge training data have been used to train those models towards certain purposes. Language, so we speak about textual input and also textual output. So the large AI model are models which aim to, let's say, generate a new textual content based on textual input. And there is no kind of magic behind those models. At the end, ChatGPT and the hype behind the ChatGPT was based on simple AI model. It's a model which aimed to predict the next word. That's it. So, for example, who is Firas bin Hassan? So based on all the internet data, they're going to look into the context of Firas bin Hassan and try to generate and to predict the next word. But why ChatGPT and large language model those days gained a huge, let's say, hype? First, as I mentioned, the data. With ChatGPT, you are speaking about all internet data until October 2021. With ChatGPT, for example, 4, Omni or GPT-4 Turbo, we are speaking about all the internet data until, let's say, December 2023. And there we learned all the syntactical and semantic relationship between those words. Second is the technology. As I mentioned before, large language models are models which aim to predict the next words. So of course, in order to be trained on all the internet data, we have, let's say, huge cloud computing capabilities which aim to calculate those kind of relationship. Third, free of cost. For the first time, you can interact with artificial intelligence for free. So you can go to OpenAI and, let's say, open an account, and then that's it. Now you can enjoy also GPT-4 Omni, for example. Cross-industry utility. I can ask, for example, any question about any kind of discipline and industry. I can ask about, for example, let's say, farming activities, banking, for example, business rules, insurance, for example, fraud detection business rules in Brazil. So I can ask a lot of questions about any kind of topic. Also, for example, nice recipes about how to cook, for example, nice paella, etc. And last but not least, for the first time, the interaction between AI and a human being gets more and more democratized. So you don't need to learn Python. You don't need to learn, for example, let's say, machine learning or classifications model to interact with AI and to manipulate AI and to guide AI. For the first time, we are speaking about a field called prompt engineering, which is, in my opinion, a science and an art, which aim to democratize this way of interaction between you and artificial intelligence. In addition to the large language model under the umbrella of large AI model, we have large visual model. When we speak about, for example, let's say textual input or image, let's say input as an output, we get, for example, image. When we speak about here, Talee, Bikan, etc. And now I will come back to large language model, which now going to disappear, for you to know. And we have a new discipline called large multimodal models, because they can support any kind of input. Could be text, could be image, could be video, and the same as well for generation, such as Gemini, GPT-4, for example, vision, GPT-4 Omni. So I can, for example, enter any invoice and then ask about this invoice all the questions. I can send a paper and ask, for example, GPT-4 Omni to do the calculation and see, for example, if I'm allowed to take a loan or not, for example. So this is, let's say, the beauty of the large multimodal, which we are going to deep dive later on. I'm not going to speak about other large AI models that we can apply in any kind of discipline, such as, for example, DNA generation for vaccination production. We speak about gaming. We can speak about many and many other disciplines. If 2022 was the year of large AI large language model, if also 2023 was the year of the maturity of the large language model, 2024 and the next years will be the year of large multimodal models. When we speak about supporting, let's say, different kind of documents and text, speech, for example, image, but also we are speaking about understanding the context. For example, with GPT-4 Turbo and GPT-4 Omni, I can copy-paste more than 64th, for example, pages from English book and try to ask questions. So we have now a huge memorization with GPT-4 Omni, which at GPT, for example, GPT 3.5, you can only, for example, memorize 2 pages only. The large language model as well has been now trained with the additional, let's say, content and additional, for example, text. When you speak about parameters, when we are handling, for example, billions of words and tokens that has been trained with the large multimodal models. Also the accuracy, now GPT-4 on many tasks, including also now the mathematical calculations, has been improved. And GPT-4 was quite expensive as well. It's still expensive. If you go to, for example, let's say Microsoft OpenAI service and you go to GPT-4, it will be, you can go to find it quite expensive. But now we have a new kind of behavior appearing. Because the large language models, these kind of big competitions for, let's say, from the providers, that we have seen currently a huge decrease in the cost. GPT-4 Turbo, for example, or GPT-4 Omni, they're quite cheaper compared to GPT-4. And also in the next couple of days or months of years, the price will be also decreased comparing also to the other providers. And we can go to the, for example, to the open source models one day, who knows? But also in the next days, hours, because let's say currently now we cannot predict what's going on to be the next years. actually we cannot predict what's going on to be in the next months, days, and hours. And there, we're expecting, of course, that the model size will going to increase. That means maybe one day we are going to have the model up to date with the current internet data. So real-time training, not, for example, to have a window. The same context, we can speak about, let's say, now thousands of pages of English books that they can, for example, have in one session. Multimodality, we can also support other kind of, let's say, type or format of input that we can include in the large multimodal models. Of course, the accuracy. And as I mentioned before, the pricing hype nowadays is getting to decreased from all the providers like Bedrock, AWS, and for example, Azure OpenAI, and also, for example, from currently the open source, which are for free actually. Good. The second also question, what about the classical AI? In my previous session, I was seeing, let's say, the focus on AI, which, for example, let's say, quite interesting to address because Gen AI is part. But what about the classical AI, such as machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision, conventional AI? GPT-4 Omni, now, you can upload the document, image, and then you get all the data extracted. Do we still need OCR? Do I still need to pay expensive service from Azure, for example, to have an OCR solution? Now, I can ask or upload a picture of my car, which is damaged, and ask GPT-4, for example, Vision, what is the expected cost of repairing this car? What is the severity of the damage in my car? And you can get it, for example, with quite cheap. You don't need to train computer vision model from scratch. You don't need to worry about the labels and the image acquisitions and the annotation of the images to train your new model. The same, for example, for natural language processing. If you would like to do sentiment analysis, if you would like to extract suspicious keywords, for example, for certain descriptions, do you still need to train a model and claims and contracts and, for example, informations to train your model? No, you just upload the document, prompt, extract the suspicious keywords. You don't need to specify and, let's say, have kind of predefined. With GPT or with any kind of large language model trained, it would be quite sufficient to do this exercise. Conventional AI, chatbot. Do you need to have, for example, let's say, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, for example, to have your next agent, for example, to create your chatbot? No. You just now with GPT-4 Omni, which is supporting the voice and the speech, talk to him, and then he's going to understand and also answer you in any kind of format you like it. But there is certain limitation that we have seen so far, also, for example, internally in Allianz, especially when we try to work on, let's say, replacing the machine learning in terms of classification and regression. Yes, here, Gen AI show big limitation, not small limitation, but actually big limitation because, of course, of simple complex calculation and also the data that we need, for example, to teach from statistical perspective, let's say, all the relationship between different features and different parameters. That's why the predictive modeling and, let's say, the regression models and the classification models for, let's say, toward specific topics for financial, for risk management, for example, for actual, for underwriting, etc., has shown certain limitation. Good news, in 2024, according to our, let's say, collaborators, such as EY, for example, Accenture, McKinsey, so all the insurer, I can say all, or 99% of our insurer company in the world, not only in Germany or in Europe, in the world, are all in generative AI. And those key numbers are in 2024. So actually, this kind of 99% coming from 42% of the insurer already invested in artificial intelligence, in Gen AI in 2023 and 2024. And also there is a plan for the other insurer to implement or to make an investment on Gen AI this year too. Also some observations and some studies already shown by McKinsey, for example, and for example, Bain, that Gen AI already quantify the values. All the companies has have followed the hype of Gen AI in 2023. Let's invest, let's say let's bring this API, let's, for example, build a use case. But now we have a new kind of, let's say, logic. Because in 2023, a lot of corporates, a lot of insurance company, for example, they have this fear which called FOMO. So fear of missing out. What's going on? Oh, AXA is doing that. Oh, let's do that. Or, oh, okay, I see Generative, for example, is doing that, etc. But now the discussion has been completely changed in 2024. So people are speaking, okay, what should we invest? What kind of use cases? And especially, what are the value added? There is a funny story actually shared by McKinsey. There is a big bank corporate which bought thousands, I think, of Copilot, GitHub Copilot licenses. And then they didn't find anything to do with them. That's why it's super important to quantify before what is the expected results. And as I said before, so in many kind of use cases related to insurance, Gen AI already shown, let's say, the capabilities in terms of cost reduction and cost savings plus revenue generation. Maybe I can speak about insurance, for example, in general. Sorry for the small, let's say, slides, but I will not look into it. So you can also ignore it. So for example, in insurance, there's many disciplines when we can first save cost and second, generate a new let's say, revenues. For you to know, this slide is not from Gen AI, so I just copy-paste. That's actually the exception from my presentation. For example, in claims, let's actually start with the standard use case for our employees, especially for the tech people. In case we'd like, for example, to build a new application, a new, for example, framework, we don't need, for example, to learn how to do that. So Copilot GitHub is probably the best solution, for example, to help you with all the problems related to IT, to code reorganization, to code translation, or you can also ask ChatGPT, for example. Second, we are launching, for example, since now 1 year, so we're going to celebrate 1 year of Allianz GPT, the birth, let's say, of Allianz GPT, which now kind of the global knowledge management base for all Allianz employees. For onboarding, I can, for example, for all the questions regarding onboarding, regarding, for example, internal processes, the corporate rulebooks of Allianz, or let's say the report that could be useful for example, for our colleagues around the world, they just go to ChatGPT, Allianz GPT, and then, for example, let's say, ask them. Which shows quite importance, for example, capabilities in terms of cost reduction. So we don't need, for example, to assign more hours to a senior software engineer or data scientist to onboard a new colleague, or, for example, let's say to invest many days in order to translate the code, or, let's say, correct some bugs in your code. Underwriting. We have a new customers or existing customers. We have plenty of documents about their profile, about their properties, about their cars, about their, for example, let's say, satellites, about their, for example, boats. So here with, for example, Gen AI and large multimodal models, you can, for example, easily provide a scoring, let's say, for this kind of profile or for this customer. So with simple prompt, you say, okay, if the person is living in rural zone, then make a score of +5. Then if the person is living in, for example, in urban zone, then +8. Then, for example, if the policyholder age is less than 78, so you create big prompt when you define your business rules, and then you have a new contract you submit, and then you extract and you get your score immediately without training completely a new model from scratch. And many more claims as well, for example, to detect suspicious claims. So I can stay until tomorrow speaking about where we can use Gen AI, for example, in insurance or in financial industry in general. But of course, everyone is following, let's say, this kind of hype, but we need to be careful, especially in insurance sector or banking sector. We are very, very regulated. And we love regulation. Actually, with Sasha, we have spoken with Adora, I said, oh, his headache. With, let's say, with DORA regulation, because now we need to assess our lot of contracts, for example, let's say using, for example, let's say with our providers, with the new regulation for finance is called Adora, and it's a big headache, to be honest, but it's also fun, Saja Monchain. So that's why, of course, the protection of our customer data, our also duty as Allianz towards sustainability, and the ESG, for example, parameters, security, etc., needs to be first placed. Because AI, for sure, is great, but of course has limitations. I can, for example, speaking about bias and harm. I mean, Gen AI is not racist, it's not biased, it's not discriminative. But you don't know how those data or training data, which training data has been used. Is the data has been used, for example, contains certain bias and discriminative, let's say, clauses. If you are going to speak about now, for example, describe or with ChatGPT 3.5 at least, because now it has been improved. With GPT 3.5, if you ask, okay, what is the position? Can you describe the position of a nurse? Okay, the position of the nurse, responsibility, she, her, she, her. The same, for example, successful leader. He, for example, his, etc., etc., etc. So there is kind of certain stereotype. And unfortunately, with the large language models, especially the one that we need to use, because we have three, let's say, direction when we go to Gen AI, as corporate, as mid-corp, or as also small, let's say, company. Either you are a taker, or a shaper, or let's say, builder. Builder, not. A lot of people, they are speaking about training of large language model. To be honest, is waste of time and waste of money. Because your data is not going to be beautiful, and also the generation will be kind of beautiful compared to the internet data that has been trained with. So builder, to build large language model from scratch, please gain your time, gain your workforce, and then exclude this kind of alternative. Taker, a lot of people are using the API, for example, or this kind of GitHub Copilot, for example, to use that, which is quite convenient. Or shaper. For example, here you need to build on top of the API to include your knowledge base, you include your own data. And here, as I said, there's a lot of questions towards bias, harm, liability on compliance, reliable output, and here also the importance of, for example, how our customers and our employees, for example, in Allianz, are prompting very well, let's say, efficiently and drafting very well, let's say, their prompts, because this also can mitigate or can, make, for example, hallucination. Confidential and security. In the beginning, for sure, we have a lot of, let's say, agreement with our account management, for example, with Microsoft, with AWS, with Google Cloud about, okay, where are our data are stored? Are they encrypted? Are they going to use to train, for example, your model and vice versa? So there's a lot of questions that have been, let's say, clarified. Sustainability. Do you know, for example, how much CO2 emission coming from training a large language model? Do we care? I will reply to this question later on. Workforce transition. My colleague as well, before here in the event, speak about the importance of, let's say, helping your internal colleagues and employees adopting the culture of change, adopting the culture of Gen AI. And this is also quite a big challenge that AI can bring, especially, for example, if you have certain opposition. That's why let's share with you tips and tricks to invest carefully, efficiently in Gen AI in your company. First, competition, let's say, prioritize the use case. If you don't know what you're going to do, you don't need to invest in Gen AI. Coming back to the example of the bank, which bought thousands of GitHub Copilot licenses, and at the end, they don't know what to do. if you don't have a clear use case, and especially this year, 2024, is the year that you need to prove that Gen AI makes sense or not to your corporate, or to your department, or to your team. You need to have kind of a clear use case with a clear KPI and with a clear, for example, let's say, a competitive advantage that it allows you to invest in generative AI. Upskilling and reskilling. For example, in Allianz, we are now successfully, let's say, training and upskilling and reskilling more than 25% of our workforce, when you speak about around 50,000 colleagues worldwide in Gen AI, including technical and non-technical background people. Because it's very important also for the non-IT background to understand how the Gen AI and large language model are working and how to prompt efficiently, for example, let's say, in order to avoid any kind of discriminative answer, hallucinated answer, etc. So it's super important to upskill and reskill your talent in your company. For example, now we have a new titles: prompt engineer, RAG expert, retrieval augmented generation, for example, engineer, database or vector database, for example, admin, or let's say modeler, LLM ops instead of ML ops. So there is a new disciplines come in, and especially it's super important to upskill our existing talent, for example, from ML ops to LLM ops, from data scientist to fine-tune engineer and to RAG engineer. As I said, for building a model from scratch, I'm against. And third, for example, let's say the database. If we have a data engineer, it would be great if we can also show him how he can manage multi-model, for example, vector database, etc. The same, for example, for non-IT people background. It's super important to, let's say, to allow them to learn new skills towards, for example, prompt engineering, let's say towards, for example, let's say RAG, fine-tuning, so, but of course, with non-IT vocabulary. Otherwise, it would be super boring for them. Architecture for smooth and responsible scaling. Building POC can take hours. Now with OpenAI, you go to GitHub, for example, ask how to create chat with your own data use case. 2 hours, you have a POC. But scaling and industrializing this POC can take up more, at least 4-6 months. And that's why it's super important to understand what is your vision. What do you have now? Do you like to be cloud agnostic? Do you like to be, for example, Microsoft Azure dependent, etc.? So there's a lot of questions that should be clarified. Are you ready, for example, with your data governance? Are you, for example, fine to integrate your legacy systems, or you need to migrate them? So there is kind of clear strategy plan need to be evaluated before investing in generative AI. And a lot of questions as well regarding, for example, let's say, data privacy and data security. That's why we are speaking about responsible AI. You need to ensure that your data and the data of your customer is protected. You need to ensure that all the information you get from large language model are fair and explainable. So you know which document, which paragraph, and which, for example, let's say, page I extract this information from. I need to understand, for non-IT people backgrounds, all those kind of details. So here, there is a big work to do to ensure that you have technology architecture supporting, creating, scaling, for example, let's say, your Gen AI use cases. Documents and data. Sorry. All good? I start from the beginning, or what? Can you repeat again, sorry? If you want, I can do it from my side here. Just a second. Ah, okay. Yes. Last years, we're investing in artificial intelligence. Let's say we are having structured databases. We have customer data in, for example, databases. So we are speaking about always tabular data: name, family name, age, gender, work, contract, etc. Sorry, not contract, but all the tabular data. And we never touch the unstructured data, like those PDFs, like documents, etc., and the contract. And that's also the good thing that you need, of course, to ensure data quality. And that's also, I'm super happy that a lot of customers, for example, come in to us, especially when they would like to implement their own Gen AI use case. Firas, how, for example, I should present or provide you the data? Should be, for example, PDF? Should be, for example, without images? Should be, for example, without, let's say, tables? So there is a big, for example, now awareness from our colleagues about the data quality. And it's super important because also, let's say, the data quality and the structure of the data can play quite a big important role. But let's say this is something that you can exercise when you focus mainly on the structured data in order to, let's say, to fuel your Gen AI model. Last but not least, build trust and reusability within your department. Of course, you're going to have a lot of opposition. People are not used to Gen AI. People are not using, for example, or used, for example, to get this information clearly, and they still don't trust. And this is kind of normal behavior in any kind of new technology. So that's why here you need to ensure that we have kind of a trust culture within our team and within our corporate or within our company about the benefits and also about, let's say, the drawbacks. So it needs to be completely transparent. Gen AI is good for that and that and that, but be careful. Bias, prompt hacking, for example, hallucination, data privacy. So all these kind of things need to be, of course, shared with the people to have clear kind of strategy in the future to be part as well and to learn and also to participate. So that's super, super important to adopt in your company. I hope you enjoyed the session. I know that I increased a little bit my time, so sorry for that. And I hope also my Spanish colleague will be able to present now. And happy to have any question with you later on. Thank you.